Hello, and welcome to this recorded webinar about LinkedIn Learning at Brigham Young University. My name is Sarah Viner. I'm going to be walking you through what LinkedIn Learning is, how we're connected to LinkedIn, and some very important steps about how to actually use the platform as a faculty member. So I'm going to share just a little bit of overview to start off with about what LinkedIn is. A few things to mention up front. Let's try and get this full screen. There we go. So you may know LinkedIn from our previous incarnation, which was lynda.com. So back in 2015, LinkedIn acquired lynda.com, which is an e-learning platform with amazing video and audio-based content. It really was world-class and continues to be. So we have turned it into LinkedIn Learning in time. And now what you'll see is over 16,000 expert-led courses. We bucket those into business, creative, and technology as overarching skills. Within those, you'll find a lot of different content, specifically focusing on the best-in-class subject matter expert-led content. We bring in professors, thought leaders, and professionals in their fields to author these courses with our pedagogical team and our standards on top of those. We add about 60 courses a week, so they're always of the utmost relevance. And we also archive regularly, so anything that's out of date or no longer pertinent is removed from the site as well. But you'll notice that the breadth and depth of the content is really vast, so you'll be able to dive deep into many subjects and also explore just surface level content based on your own curiosity. The platform itself is a really engaging learner experience, as I hope you'll see here in our demo. It's intuitive, it's really simple to use, and it's completely accessible. It's also on a desktop and a mobile app version that you can download, and we have audio-only courses. So if you're a commuter and want to listen or on walks, that sort of thing, there are plenty of options. And all of this also is based on our strategic insights. So the fact that LinkedIn Learning is connected to LinkedIn's data-rich ecosystem means that we can analyze the data to see what kinds of skills are needed in the workforce. And that's going to inform the content that we produce. So thinking about how we personalize for each learner, it'll really allow us to help provide stakeholders with really valuable insights, things like student outcomes, things like trending skills, even thinking about manager and leadership skills across the board. So we're going to take a look at some of those insights here as well. And just to give you a little more insight on the LinkedIn front, in case this isn't something you spend a lot of time on, LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. So we have over 756 million professionals on LinkedIn, and very importantly, over 15 million jobs. So the key focus areas are connecting as a network to the professional world, and then staying up to date on the industry and professional news to ideally get hired and start building out your career. And that's our big focus for students. But of course, these are really important elements for faculty and staff as well. So making sure that you're staying informed through our insights being tapped into your industry and understanding what other professionals in your fields are talking about as well. That's what we do. So the three main areas that build LinkedIn Learning are all within the LinkedIn ecosystem. This incredible world-class content, the engaging learner experience itself, that will be really easy to navigate both for you and for your students. And then those insights that we pull from our understanding of all the data we have accessible to us via LinkedIn builds LinkedIn Learning all together. So let's talk about how you can use that. As a faculty member, there are an amazing amount of options that you can start using this within. But keyly, why? What's the point? So we have over 16,000 interactive courses and over 60 of those added each week, which I mentioned. You can use those to cover trending skills and in-demand skills, and you can weave those into your curriculum as free supplementary content for your students. So no extra textbooks. These could be things that are remediation for your students. Perhaps they're coming to your course without the basic foundational level knowledge that they need to be successful within it. It's a great way to help them bootstrap and catch up on those skills that maybe you hoped they already had. It could also be a great option to cover content that you don't have time in your course to cover, but is really helpful for the industry. Maybe your students in the computer science degree are going to be going in for programming or engineering interviews. And we know that there's a really specific subset of questions and tasks and tests that they will probably have to do in those interviewing processes. You very likely won't have time to cover that in your short semester course. So this is a great place to send them to as either pre-work or follow-up work to help them be successful and hopefully raise their employability in the long term as well. And then using our insights is also a great way to inform your academic strategy. So if you're ever curious, wondering, what are the top skills that people going into the accountancy world need? It used to be Excel was the only skill. Now R is becoming a much more popular skill. So things like the trends that we can track within LinkedIn, what sorts of skills there are gaps in different industries that recruiters are looking to fill. And then also understanding more about what's growing and trending and is unique in each different skill in industries. That's something that we can give you a lot more information on. So always exciting to partner on those insights as well. So lots of content in here that in the deck that I'm going to leave behind for you, you can take a look at. But just a few kind of best practices as you're leveraging LinkedIn Learning with the end goal of helping student outcomes overall. As you weave that into your curriculum, you'll see that it's going to be able to cover some of those skills that maybe you don't have time for. It can also be a really great way to kind of boost discussion topics. So we, within LinkedIn as a company, we use a course club mentality. So we'll encourage our team to all watch or listen to a course, maybe a half-an-hour course, and then we'll come back with a set of discussion questions so that we can encourage discourse around that topic. This might be a great way to get your students engaged, perhaps in a seminar session. So tons of options and different ways that they can use the course, our course content to practice, but obviously where it's going to fit in your curriculum best. And then there are some great other options within LinkedIn itself as well. So being able to stay connected with your students once they graduate, if you want to write them a recommendation, or if you'd like to ask for recommendations from students or perhaps groups of your research assistants, for example, it's a really excellent way to make both of you very, very well branded professionally, and makes a student really appealing to a hiring manager. And then, as I mentioned, what sort of programs you might want to start working into your own curriculum, what sorts of skills are really in demand and in need now. And then really increasing the collaborative piece through learning groups and through questions and answers with our authors on the platform itself. So there are some really excellent options within there. And then this is really key. So we can do some of this work for you. We already have curated learning paths for you. So in addition to just these standalone videos and courses that we have that, typically each video tends to be between 2 and 5 minutes long, and courses are usually between 30 and 90 minutes. Some of them are longer and shorter, of course. We also have learning paths, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in your platform. But the idea of a learning path is that it's intended as an education experience. So you start at the top of your learning path like you would in a module in an LMS, and you work your way down that list. You can jump around as a learner, so you don't have to do them all in order, but they get checked off as you go. So the idea is that you're starting from the beginning and you're working through essentially what is a module. And this is really helpful, especially for faculty. If there are a number of things that you are interested in having your students learn, you might curate this experience for them within LinkedIn Learning. So perhaps that first course is that foundational or remediation level of content that you need them to get started with before they move on in your course. Maybe that's the first 2 weeks needs to be done within. And then maybe there's a really excellent talk that you'd like your students to watch that's not on LinkedIn Learning. It's a YouTube video or a video that you have downloaded from somewhere else. You can actually use our custom content to upload that kind of content into LinkedIn Learning and include that within a learning path. So even if it's perhaps a recorded, maybe we've been teaching a lot online this last year. So maybe you have a recorded seminar of one of your lectures that you've done and you'd like to include that as a custom piece of content. Maybe your first class, you give kind of an introduction talk and you talk a little bit about your background and you want that to be recorded, that to be one of the items in your learning path. Completely up to you how you use that, but you can upload as much content as you want. We have no hosting limits whatsoever. You have a 5 megabyte upload limit for videos, which is pretty enormous. And once those videos, documents, links are in your custom content space, you'll be able to just drop those directly into your learning paths. And then this is one to really take advantage of. We also have content mapping services included within our partnership. So it's a really fantastic perk of the partnership. You will be able to send us super simple spreadsheet with the objectives that you're looking to find LinkedIn content on. And our content mapping team can turn it around for you and share back links directly to those courses for you. So it'll just save you a lot of time in terms of searching for the content that you think is best suited. And also being clear that when you send over the spreadsheet, you'll be specifically asking for higher education industry pertinent content. So we'll be filtering for that as well. So certainly make use of that. We can always channel that through. So our main point of contact is Kirsten Thompson. So if you have any questions about content mapping or you'd like to submit those for us, please do reach out and we can get that sorted for you. But just a few that we've already got sorted for you. And I do have kind of a general master content mapping to be able to share with you too, which is pretty vast. But just within here are some topics that, as a former educator, these are topics that I would consider top of mind. So within the teaching and instructional design, there's some great courses for your own professional development and learning. UDL, Teaching Complex Topics, is a great one at the bottom there. And we have some assessment content. We have some really key classroom skills, and these are just the tip of the iceberg, honestly. But then there's also professional development that's not necessarily teaching focused. So things like time management, working remotely, maybe you're communicating with confidence or thinking about emotional intelligence, top topics that maybe you want to spend some time on, especially if you have some on vacation. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the platform itself to give you a little bit of an insight into the click-through and see what it looks like. So if you've never logged into LinkedIn Learning before, I do recommend you do that now and give yourself a chance to actually click through with me. I'm going to share a new screen with you all. So when you first log in to LinkedIn Learning, the very first time you activate your license, if you've never logged in before, you're going to be asked what sort of course content you're interested in learning about. Based on that, and then based on any other information that we will gather, so what you're watching, what's trending in your industry, what you said that you're interested in, we'll start recommending different content to you on this homepage. But when you're looking for something specific, which in the scenario of working content into your curriculum, you probably will be, the easiest way is to just use this search bar at the top of your screen. If you think you know vaguely what you're looking for, but you're not really sure about a specific topic, you might choose to use this browse dropdown, which is where we break out our content by business, creative, and technology. And then you'll also see Brigham Young at the bottom, which will actually show you any custom content that has been uploaded and is widely available to everyone at the university. And then within each of these larger buckets, we'll break it down to more specifics, maybe even thinking about just professional development. I'm going to look at some communication skills. So getting pretty niche in terms of the course subject area. And on the left, I can break this down to just courses, videos, audio, or learning paths. And we talked about learning paths, so I'll show you what it actually looks like. Here's a 9-hour and 13-minute learning path on mastering in-demand professional soft skills. So things like resilience, emotional intelligence, embracing change. These are top topics after the last year of course. And you'll notice that it's, as we said, organized top to bottom. You can always just start working your way through it. Or if there's a course that really catches your eye, you can scroll down and search for that one specifically. And then within each of those courses, you'll have the ability to click through. You can always see the contents on the side. So you don't have to finish the whole course. But I will say that if you finish all of the courses within that learning path, you'll be able to get a certificate of completion for that learning path. Now, on top of that, you'll also be able to add the certificate of completion or your license in education. You'll be able to add that over to your LinkedIn profile as long as you've chosen to connect the LinkedIn and the LinkedIn learning profiles. So that's a real advantage for your students. And I would always recommend that you suggest to students that they do that. As they start posting LinkedIn learning content onto their profile, you'll notice that they're starting to get way more likely to be responded to when they apply for jobs. Their response rate to emails goes up. So we have the data that really supports the fact that that is a meaningful addition to a LinkedIn profile, let alone the fact that you are twice as likely to get to the interview stage of a job application process if you have a LinkedIn profile at all. So key metrics that we look at when we're thinking of encouraging students to use the platform itself. And a few things to note: it's very intuitive when you get into the courses themselves, but just so you know, you do have the option to speed up the playback speed or slow it down. So if you find that the author speaks too quickly, perhaps you can slow down my video, for example. You can always slow down the playback speed here. You can also speed it up if it's going a little bit too slowly for you. You can add closed captioning to make sure that it's accessible. And you can also lower the quality. So if you're ever somewhere that's doesn't have great bandwidth, that's not really well connected, you can always lower the quality of the playback speed, something I was dealing with last weekend. And then you'll notice on some of our courses, we have things like exercise files, and then you'll also see something that says continuing education units. So this is probably more applicable to you all as faculty members. If you do have any things like maybe you have that Project Management Institute, PMI, PIP credential that you're looking to keep up to date. Maybe you have a SHRM credential, CompTIA, CISSP. So various professional learning certificates that you need prep hours to be able to take the tests around. We have a lot of courses that fulfill those prep hours. So you can always filter when you're searching for content for those specific sorts of filters, which will show you what that looks like. And once you're finished, you can download that certificate of completion. So if you don't have a connected profile, you could just download the certificate. You'll be able to keep that in maybe an e-portfolio or printing it, however you choose. And one great trick within the courses themselves, if you're ever going back to a course and you know it was there was some really helpful information in there, but you can't remember exactly where it was, you can actually search the whole course using this dropdown. And you could search for a keyword. So if I want to search within this whole course for content around persuasion, I might search for the word persuade, and then I can scroll down and see all of the places where that word is mentioned within this course. If I click on the quote, it'll take me directly to the video in which that content shows up. So a great way to just get to the content that you're looking for right away. And also if you ever need to reference it later, it's very helpful. So as I go through these courses, I'm going to get them checked off on my learning path. So once I finish each one, it'll just get checked off. When I finish all of the ones on my learning path, I'll have this certification of completion available to me at the end. But within each of those courses, I'll also get the certificate of completion. So there's lots of opportunities to pull content that you think is the most meaningful, either as a student or as a professional as you're doing this as well. One thing to point out within the course itself is that you'll see some courses have chapter quizzes, and these are really helpful for self-checks. So as a faculty professor, you don't have access to see how your students are doing on those quizzes. They are really intended to be self-assessments. Same thing goes for you all. So no one at the institution has access to how you do on those assessments. It's just for you to be able to figure out whether you're bringing away the key takeaways and a check for understanding for yourself. Some of them also have exams that you can take, and you can always grab screenshots of those exams as well, which is helpful. So if I find that I'm ready to grab some content, maybe this whole course I'd like to include within my course, I can go ahead and choose this little arrow in the top corner, and I can just grab this link. And this is going to be a great option to be able to post it directly within your learning management system. Mike's going to go through what it looks like to go from the learning management system and post directly within there. But this is a really easy way of doing it as well. Just taking the link for the whole course or taking the link for the individual video, copying that, and then posting it as a link within your learning management system might be the easiest way for you to do it. So it's really as though you were just taking an article off the internet, same concept here. All of these links will actually go directly through your single sign-on experience. So your students won't have to log in again. They'll go straight through your single sign-on and into LinkedIn Learning, which means they have access to all of the content. So they should never see any, subscribe to this channel thing, because it's already included within our partnership for all students, faculty, and staff. Okay, so just taking a couple of steps back on the filtering front. If I'm looking for something really specific, maybe I have a research assistant that doesn't really understand all the ins and outs of Excel, and I want her or him to learn about pivot tables more. I can go in and search something specific like Excel pivot tables, and I'll see my most popular content at the top. You'll also see that if you're ever working with older versions of the software, you'll see that we keep those. We try and keep them available for folks as long as it's still being supported by Microsoft or by the tool. But we'll point out what kind of a training it is there. So Excel 2016, for example, if you're still on that version. And just take a look at all these filters on the left-hand side. So you'll notice that I can look for those courses, videos, or learning paths, but I can also look for things like level, and I can look for time for completion as well. So maybe I have quite a lot of content that my students need to watch already. I don't want to give them another 6 hours of content. I just need like tops 30 minutes. I can use this little check mark to find any content that does respond to the search term, but is also short. And then remember, I talked about those continuing education units. This is where you'll see those filters as well. So it looks like we've slimmed down our abilities quite a bit here, but we still have, of course, NASBA for our accountancy certificate. We still have the ability to filter out our courses that do count as prep hours towards that certificate. So lots of options to be able to find exactly the content you need. Once you've found it, you can always go ahead and click on these 3 dots, and you'll be able to add that to your content. If you want to, you can also recommend content. So we have a role called the curator role, which is really designed with faculty in mind. And the idea with the curator role is that you can both create your own learning path with that custom content that you've uploaded, and you have the ability to recommend that content to your students. So if you want to share that out with an individual student, you can do that directly within LinkedIn Learning. Or of course, you can always still just grab that link and you can share it out that way on your learning management system, for example. The upside of the recommendation tool is that you actually get the ability to look at your recommendation history in that scenario, which is just a great way to track the completion. But again, I would say always a good idea to create some kind of check for understanding on the content itself. Remember, we can tell you whether the video played, but we can't tell you whether the student was really watching that content or whether they really understood anything from it. So do always remember to use those check for understandings for the content that you're asking them to watch. I have worked with plenty of schools who use our chapter quizzes or our end of course exam. They use some of the content from that as an assessment. So they'll just copy and paste into an assessment within the learning management system, or even within like a Microsoft or a Google form that you include. And that's a great way to track completion that way with a much higher degree of assessment rather than just did this video play until the end. Okay, so we've run through the top tips here. One other thing I'll note is that under your notifications channel, you do have a little settings tool. So if you're getting too many notifications, you want to change the way you get communications from LinkedIn Learning, you can always do that here. And if you do want to be able to create your own learning paths, you're going to need those instructor permissions, but I'll show you what that looks like. So as a curator, instead of seeing in the top right corner, instead of seeing this little go to admin button up here, you're actually going to see a drop down that says add. So it looks just like this drop down. And you can say that I'm going to create a learning path. And this is where you'd start to create your own learning path. So as a curator, once you get those curator permissions through your request, this is where you'd be able to create your own learning path. But you can also use one of ours. So if you saw a learning path that had, 5 or 6 pieces of content that you think are really helpful, and you'd like to add some extra ones on top of it, or you'd like to take one away and add your own, you can always start by copying an existing learning path. So maybe my research assistants are in need of a little bit of leadership skills. So they're doing great with the research itself, but I'm trying to encourage them to come away from this program with a good understanding of being a leader. And with that in mind, I want to make sure that I'm training them up for those things so that they are really ready for the workforce. So maybe I want to check out this Become a Leader course. I can preview it, take a look at what's included in that. And perhaps I see, well, they're not managers yet, so I don't think that's really applicable, but definitely this Emerging Leader Foundations, developing your leadership philosophy, leading effectively with emotional intelligence, seems like a great learning path to use. So I'm going to go ahead and select that learning path. And automatically, the whole learning path will be duplicated within mine. I can edit those details and change the name of it. And I can also make this discoverable to maybe only people with direct access. So if I want to only share the link with people that can view it, then I can do it that way. I can also create a group for those people and then just make it available to the people within the group, or I can just leave it as available for everyone. Maybe people that aren't my research assistants, but also maybe are thinking about leadership skills, they'll also gain some understanding from it. I can choose everyone here, and if someone does happen to search for this content, they would find it here as well. You can also make this anonymous, so you don't have to post as your own person. You can say it would post up as Brigham Young. And actually this is a feature that would only be available if you're a sub-admin. So as a curator, you don't have to worry about that one. And when I hit update, this will now be my new title. And now I can go in and start deleting content that I don't want to include using those 3 dots. And I can also search for new content. Maybe I want to search for content within LinkedIn Learning. Maybe I want to link to content outside of LinkedIn Learning. And if you have any content that is custom that you've uploaded, you'd be able to search for it using the term that you uploaded, and then it would pop right up here and you'd be able to add it directly into your course like so. Once you're done, you can save it and publish it. And right from here, you have the ability to copy the link and drop that straight into your learning management system, or email it to your students or your research assistants or whatever other groups you're working with at that point. You might even find that perhaps you're running some kind of a course club with your colleagues or the other people within your school or your department. And this is another great way to encourage some discourse and learning together. You could also copy that link and share it with them directly that way too. So really tons of options, plenty of possibilities in the way that you use this. But the first step in the right direction is certainly knowing how to use the platform in terms of the search functionality, and then being able to just easily grab that link and share it out. You can actually always just grab the URL as well. So if you're ever looking at a piece of content and you'd like to just share that piece of content as is, you can always just take the URL, and it's a shareable link that will send all of your learners at Brigham Young directly through your single sign-on to get in there. Okay. So that about sums up how to use LinkedIn Learning, what it is, how we're connected with LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, we are here to help. So please do submit those to your team and they can come along this direction. And I will always help out with that. Otherwise, I hope this goes well, and I'm looking forward to hearing feedback. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. So to add a LinkedIn Learning assignment to Learning Suite, I'm going to first show you one that's already been set up. So you open this up, and what we need to do is make sure that we select the type external plugin. We put in our title and our description, category, date, due points possible. And then we'll come to this external plugin, and it'll default to this global configuration. And from the global modules, you'll select LinkedIn Learning. That will give you basically this URL, which will just get you into LinkedIn Learning. So if all you want your students to do is go explore LinkedIn Learning, you're done. You're fine. You can save. You don't even have to set anything up. We'll save that. The first time you do that, you'll have to save. You open it again, you can come to external plugin and launch LTI, and that will take you into LinkedIn Learning. And it should take you to your account. If you have any problems, we can help you through that. So just give us a call here at the CTL. Okay. So this is what your students will be taken to with their account, instead of yours, of course. Now, if you want to go to a more specific location, like a course or a specific video or whatever, there's some things we need to do. And the basic thing we need to do is change this URL right here for where the tool goes. And we're going to embed this information in into Learning Suite so you can have it, but basically it defaults to this base endpoint, which has linkedinlearning.com and checkpoint and enterprise login and our account number. And so for BYU, if you come up here, you can see there's our account number. So that's the same for any course within BYU. And so it will know whether or not you're coming from a BYU course, and it'll work if you've got this number. But I didn't have to do anything to get that number. That was already here. Okay. For anything else, for a course or a specific video or a learning path, which our presenter talked about learning paths, so I'm not going to go into that in depth, but we'll show you course and video here really quick. You just get, it's a concatenated URL that you have to put into Learning Suite. And so this has, as you can see, that original enterprise, the same as this, right? Only we end with a question mark, and then we have application equals learning plus redirect equals, and then you put in the URL of the course or video that you're trying to link to, okay, or the learning path, right, which would be this part right here. Okay, so to put those together, I put the samples right here just so you could see them. And here's our base URL. So to create, let's say this course from Seth Gooden is what I want. I can come up here and grab the URL for the course and come up here to Notepad, and I will assemble this. So I've got that URL, okay, and actually all I need is this part right here. So we'll go and U equals just like we have here, plus U equals. So that takes us to the course, right? And then we'll assemble the URL with our base URL. I'm going to get this here. Our base URL, this little part plus, or excuse me, question mark application equals learning plus redirect equals. So we add that here. And then we grab this, which is our URL, and it redirects to there. And so now I can take this and come here, replace this. So now I've got this whole big long URL that I just created, and save it. Then if a student comes, we'll go into student view, and they see this and they launch the external plugin, is going to take them right to redirects to the course. Okay. So if you want to take your students directly to a course like that, you can. Let's say we just want this learning how to juggle video. We'll pause this and we'll get this there. We could actually we could replace this part of it. Just go up to this redirect part, put this in. Okay. Now we've got a URL that takes us to a specific video. It'll still be within the context of the course, but we'll go back to instructor view. And we go to the external plugin. You can see we still have LinkedIn Learning selected. Come in here. I'm going to just do a Command A or a Control A to select the whole thing. And then I'm going to Control V to replace it. And so now I've got this learning how to juggle as the video that I'm going to, but it has all this other stuff that I need. Save that. I can go into student view, but I don't have to. I can just go back and launch it from there. But click this, bada bing, and it takes me directly to the video learning how to juggle. Hey, okay. So there you go. You do the same thing. I don't have any playlists set up, but you do the same thing with the playlist. You'd get the URL for the playlist and create this concatenated URL where you have the base URL plus this plus whatever you're linking to, course, video, or playlist. Okay, and that's all there is to it. Hope you enjoyed that and that you enjoyed our presenters' presentation, and give us a call at the CTL if you have any questions or need help with that. We can either help you or get you in touch with our representatives from LinkedIn Learning. Thank you.